A phone rang on live TV, and Muhammad Ali's whole face changed. Not the showman's smile, not the champion's swagger. Just fear, because the caller wasn't a reporter or a fan or a friend. It was an 8-year-old girl in a hospital bed fighting leukemia, and she had one question for her hero. A question so innocent it sounded harmless. But the second she asked it, Ali broke down crying on camera, hard. The interview had to stop. 3 million people watched the greatest become the most vulnerable man in America, and nobody understood why. Not really. Because what the audience didn't know was this: that one question didn't end when the cameras cut. It followed Ali for years, all the way to a small grave in Massachusetts, where a cemetery groundskeeper would later reveal a secret Ali took with him to the grave. And once you hear what Ali did in private, you'll never look at greatness the same way again. They expected Muhammad Ali to smile. They expected jokes, old stories, a little charm, maybe one of his silly magic tricks that made the studio audience clap like kids again. What they did not expect was to watch the greatest fighter alive fall apart in real time. Because on that morning, a phone rang on live television, and an 8-year-old girl asked a question so pure, so terrifying that it punched through Ali's fame, his pride, his legend, straight into the part of him that was just a man. A man who was already afraid and didn't want anyone to see it. 3 million people saw it anyway. And what nobody knew in that moment, what the cameras could never capture, was that the question wouldn't just make Ali cry. It would follow him, quietly, for years, like a shadow that only shows up when you're alone. It was October 12th, 1982, and Muhammad Ali was sitting under bright studio lights in Chicago on a daytime talk show called The Morning Show. The kind of show that ran on cheerful energy. The kind of show where hosts wore warm smiles and everything was designed to feel safe. Even the chairs were soft, even the music was gentle. But Ali didn't look soft. He was 40 years old, newly retired, still built like a monument. His shoulders were wide, his posture was proud. And yet something was different. If you looked closely, you could see it. A slight stiffness. A small tremble in the hands when he reached for his water. A delay, just a tiny one, when he answered questions. His speech wasn't as sharp as it used to be. His words didn't float and dance the way they once did. Most people chalked it up to age or years of fighting. But Ali felt it. Deep inside, he felt something changing in his body, like a slow door closing, and he didn't know how to stop it. And that scared him more than any opponent ever did. But he didn't show that fear. Not Muhammad Ali. Not in front of cameras. Not in front of America. The host was a woman named Barbara. Bright, polished, the kind of person trained to steer emotion like a car, slow down when it's too intense, speed up when it gets awkward. And she was doing what she always did. "People miss you in the ring, Muhammad," she said with a friendly laugh. "Are you ever tempted to come back?" Ali smiled, leaned forward, and the studio audience leaned with him. Because even retired, Ali had gravity. "Barbara," he said, playful, "I'm too pretty to get hit no more." The crowd laughed. Barbara laughed. The mood stayed light. They talked about his career, his big fights, his titles, his fame. They talked about the way he used to talk, how he would tease his opponents and then back it up. Ali even mentioned how he loved doing magic tricks for kids. That got a big reaction from the audience, because people liked that version of Ali. The gentle hero version. The champion who still has a heart version. And the producers loved it too. They thought the show was going perfectly. 15 minutes of smooth, safe television. No controversy. No heavy feelings. No surprises. Until the commercial break. During that break, a producer walked out onto the set. Not supposed to happen. Not casually. Not with that kind of urgency. He handed Barbara a small note. Barbara read it. Her eyes changed. Just for a second, the professional smile slipped, like a mask that almost fell off. She looked toward Ali, then back at the producer. Then she nodded once. A simple nod, but something about it made Ali sit up. He wasn't reading the note, but he could feel the shift in energy. A cold draft moving through a warm room. Barbara folded the note, kept it in her hand as if it were delicate, and the show returned from commercial. She faced the camera, smile back on, voice steady. But her eyes weren't steady. "Mohammed," she said gently, "we have someone on the phone who wants to ask you a question." Ali's face tightened a little. Not angry. Not defensive. Just alert. Barbara continued. "She's been trying to reach you for weeks. Her name is Sarah. She's 8 years old, and she's calling from a children's hospital." The studio didn't cheer. They didn't clap. The air changed so fast you could almost hear it. Ali's expression softened instantly. Not because he was acting. Because he couldn't help it. Kids were his weak spot. Always had been. He leaned forward. "Put her on," he said. Simple. Direct. No jokes. No showmanship. Just a man speaking from his chest. The phone line crackled through the speakers. Then a small voice came through. A weak voice. The kind of voice that makes adults instantly quiet, because it sounds like life is being carried in a thin paper cup. "Mr. Ali," the girl asked. Is that really you?" Ali's eyes warmed. "Yes, sweetheart," he said. "This is Muhammad Ali. What's your name?" There was a breath. A pause like she was gathering strength. "Sarah," she said. "Sarah." "How old are you, Sarah?" "I'm 8. "And were you calling from, baby?" Another breath. "I'm in the hospital." The crowd stayed silent. Not one cough. Not one shuffle. Barbara swallowed hard and kept her hands folded in her lap, like she was afraid to move. Sarah continued, almost like she was reading courage from a script she'd been practicing. "I have leukemia." That single sentence landed heavy. Barbara's face tightened. A few people in the audience covered their mouths. Ali's smile faded. Not because he didn't want to smile for her, but because he suddenly understood something. This wasn't a cute moment. This wasn't a fan call. This was a child reaching out from the edge of fear. "And she picked him." "Sarah," Ali said softly, "thank you for calling me. You very brave." Sarah sounded proud and tired at the same time. "I watch your fights," she said. "On TV with my daddy, you my favorite, you always win." Ali let out a small, sad laugh. "Not always, honey. I lost some fights too." "But you never give up," Sarah said quickly, like she needed him to hear that part. "That's what Daddy says. He says you're the greatest because you never give up." Ali nodded, eyes glossy. "Your daddy sound like a smart man." Sarah's breathing got heavier. It was clear talking was hard for her. And that made the whole thing feel even more urgent. Like every second mattered. Like time was a limited thing in her world. Barbara glanced off camera for a second. Maybe toward a producer. Maybe toward someone ready to cut this off. But Ali didn't look away. His full attention was on that tiny voice. Because something in him already knew. This call wasn't going to end like the producers planned. There was a long pause. You could hear the faint sound of hospital machines in the background. Beeping. Soft. Like distant footsteps. Then Sarah spoke again, slower. "Mr. Ali," she said, "I have a question." Ali's voice became gentle in a way America rarely heard. "Anything, sweetheart. You ask me anything you want." Another pause. Longer this time. The kind of pause that makes your stomach tighten, because you can feel something big coming. In a hospital room hundreds of miles away, an 8-year-old girl was preparing to ask the question she'd been holding inside like a secret. A question she probably didn't want to ask her parents. Because some questions break the people you love. So instead, she asked her hero. Sarah's voice cracked. "Mr. Ali." She swallowed. "When you die." Ali blinked. His face froze for half a second. She continued, "When you die, will you remember me in heaven?" It didn't feel like a question. It felt like a child opening her hands and showing the entire world her fear. Her real fear. Not needles. Not hospitals. Not pain. The fear of disappearing. The fear of being forgotten. And that fear hit Muhammad Ali like a punch he didn't see coming. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. His eyes filled instantly, like the tears were already waiting behind them. One fell, then another. His hands trembled more than before. Barbara brought her hand to her mouth, stunned. Somebody in the audience started crying. Then another. The camera kept rolling. Because live TV doesn't know how to protect a man from a moment like that. And in that moment, America watched a legend become human. Not the greatest. Not the champ. Not the loud, fearless icon. Just a man sitting under lights, trying to answer a dying child. And realizing he didn't have the strength to do it cleanly. He tried to speak. "Sarah, I..." His voice broke. He tried again. "Sweetheart, I..." But he couldn't finish. The tears came fast. He covered his face with both hands and sobbed. Hard. Shoulders shaking. And the director, panicking, cut to commercial. The last thing millions of people saw was Muhammad Ali crying like his heart had finally been told the truth. But here's the part most people don't understand. Ali didn't cry because the girl was sick. He cried because the question forced him to stare at something he'd been avoiding. His own ending. His own fear. And the terrifying idea that no matter how famous you are, no matter how loved you are, you still can't promise eternity. Not with certainty. Not with proof. And for a man who had always had the answer. That question made him powerless. And Ali hated being powerless. When the commercial break hit, Barbara knelt beside his chair. Her voice was quiet. "Muhammad," she whispered, "we can stop the interview, you don't have to keep going." Ali wiped his face, took a breath, and something changed in his eyes. He wasn't going to run. He wasn't going to hide. Not from an 8-year-old. "No," he said, voice thick. "Get her back, I need to talk to her, I need to answer her question." Barbara looked at him like she suddenly understood what kind of strength he really had. Not ring strength. Not muscle strength. A different kind. The kind that shows up when you're shaking and you still choose to stand. They returned from commercial. Ali was still emotional, still red-eyed, but he leaned forward toward the phone like that little voice was the only thing that mattered. "Sarah," he said softly, "you still there?" "Yes, Mr. Ali." Her voice sounded worried now. "Did I make you sad?" Ali swallowed. "No, baby," he said, "you didn't make me sad." Then he paused, because he needed her to hear this part. "You made me think about something very important." And as he took a deep breath to answer her, he had no idea that this moment, this promise he was about to make on live television, would follow him for decades. Not in public, not in interviews, not on camera, but in private, in silence, in places no one would ever expect to find Muhammad Ali. Ali took another breath. Not the kind you take when you're about to speak for a crowd, but the kind you take when you're trying to keep your heart from breaking in front of a child. "Sarah," he said into the phone, "listen to me, baby." The studio was so quiet you could hear the soft hum of the lights overhead. Sarah's voice came back small and unsure. "I'm listening." Ali looked down for a second, as if he was choosing words that could hold a little girl safely. "Sarah, when I get to heaven," he began, then stopped himself and corrected it like a man trying not to scare her. "And I hope that's a long, long time from now." A few people in the audience nodded, tears in their eyes, like they were silently begging life to agree. Ali continued, voice trembling but steadying with each word. "You know what I'm gonna do first." Sarah sniffed. "What?" Ali leaned closer to the microphone, like he needed the whole world to hear this promise. not just the child. I'm gonna look for you. His throat tightened. And when I find you, you know what we gonna do. Sarah's voice got a little brighter, just a little. What, Mr. Ali? Ali smiled through tears. We gonna float like butterflies. He paused. Both of us together. Then he added what mattered most. No more pain. The words hung in the studio like warm light. No more being sick. He swallowed hard. Just floating. The host, Barbara, didn't speak. She couldn't. Her eyes were wet and she didn't even try to hide it. Ali's voice softened. How that sound, Sarah? On the phone, Sarah began to cry too, but it wasn't the helpless crying of fear. It was the kind of crying that happens when hope finally gets a place to sit down. That sounds really nice, she whispered. Ali nodded slowly, as if the nod could travel through wires and reach her hospital bed. And Sarah, he said, I want you to promise me something. Sarah drew a shaky breath. Okay. Ali's tone changed, still gentle but stronger now. The champion voice, the voice that had lifted whole crowds. I want you to fight. A pause. You fight that sickness the same way I fought in the ring. His eyes flashed with something fierce. You be brave. Another pause. You be strong. The studio audience was crying openly now. No shame, no holding back. And you never ever give up, Ali said. Can you promise me that? Sarah's voice came back, thin but determined. I promise. Ali exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. And I promise you, he said, I will never forget you. He spoke slower, like he wanted each word to stay in her memory. Not in this life, and not in the next one. Then Ali said something that made the whole moment real. Not poetic, not broad, specific. You are Sarah, he said firmly, and Muhammad Ali knows your name. He tapped his chest lightly. That means something. He nodded again. That means you matter. He smiled, still sad but proud. That means you a champion too. The interview ended not long after that. Barbara tried to move the conversation back to something lighter, but it was like trying to laugh after a funeral prayer. The studio audience gave Ali a standing ovation, but it wasn't the usual celebrity applause. This wasn't celebration. It was respect. Like they had just watched a man lay his ego down for a child and pick up something heavier than any belt he ever carried. When the cameras finally cut and the lights dimmed, people started filing out quietly. Some were still wiping their eyes. Ali remained seated for a moment, staring at the floor like he was replaying Sarah's question again and again. Barbara leaned toward him carefully. Mohammed, she said softly, are you okay? Ali didn't answer right away. Then he looked up. Barbara, he said, I need her information. Barbara blinked. Her hospital. Yes, Ali said, voice firm. Her room, her parents, I need to know where she is. Barbara hesitated for half a second, not because she didn't want to help, but because she knew what it meant. If Ali walked into that hospital, the story wouldn't end at a phone call. It would become something deeper. Still, she nodded and motioned for a producer. Within minutes, Ali had Sarah's hospital details and her parents' contact number written on a slip of paper. Barbara watched him fold it carefully and place it in his jacket pocket like it was the most valuable thing he owned. What are you going to do? Barbara asked. Ali stood, adjusted his coat, and said it like it was the simplest decision in the world. I'm going to visit her. 3 days later, Muhammad Ali walked into a children's hospital in Boston. Not with cameras. Not with reporters. Not with a team. No press release, no announcement. He didn't even tell most people around him. Because this was Muhammad Ali the brand. This was Muhammad Ali the man, keeping a promise. In the lobby, a few adults recognized him instantly. Their eyes widened, their mouths opened. But Ali put a finger to his lips with a gentle smile, silently asking them not to turn this into a scene. Most of them nodded, stunned, and stepped aside. A nurse guided him through quiet hallways that smelled like disinfectant and sadness. Walls decorated with children's drawings. Paper butterflies, crayon rainbows. Cartoon stickers meant to hide the truth, that inside these rooms, kids were fighting wars their bodies didn't understand. Ali's footsteps slowed as they approached the pediatric oncology ward. He didn't speak much. He didn't joke. He just kept walking, his face serious, his eyes focused like he was stepping into a ring again. Except this time, the opponent wasn't a man. It was the unfairness of life. They reached Sarah's room. Her parents were inside. A tired man and woman who looked like they hadn't had real sleep in months. When Ali entered, both of them froze. The mother covered her mouth. The father's eyes filled immediately. They weren't crying because they were. They were crying because for the first time in weeks, something good walked through that doorway. Ali didn't say anything dramatic. He didn't perform. He simply approached the bed. Sarah was asleep. Her head was bald from treatment, her skin pale, her body small, almost too small for the blankets. She looked younger than 8. Ali sat in the chair beside her bed. It was a tiny chair meant for visitors, and Ali looked almost too big for it. This powerful man folded into something quiet and careful. He didn't wake her. He just sat there, waiting, watching her breathe, like he was guarding something sacred. An hour passed. Then Sarah's eyes fluttered open. She blinked, focused, and then she saw him. Her mouth opened in shock. "You came," she whispered. Ali leaned forward, voice warm and low. "I promised I wouldn't forget you," he said. Then he smiled, and it was the softest smile he'd shown all day. And Muhammad Ali keeps his promises. That's when Sarah's mother turned away and cried into her hands. Because in that moment, it wasn't about fame. It was about a promise kept. And the truth was, nobody in that hospital room knew it yet. But this visit was going to change Ali too. Not just Sarah. Ali. Because some promises don't just comfort the dying. They also expose the living. And Ali had just stepped into something he couldn't punch his way out of. Sarah stared at him like she was afraid he might disappear if she blinked. Muhammad Ali, right there, sitting beside her bed, so close she could see the little lines around his eyes. The same eyes she'd watched on television, fearless and bright. But now those eyes looked different. Now they looked tender. Like he was trying to be careful with her, the way you're careful when you hold something fragile. "You're really here," Sarah whispered again, like she needed to hear it twice for it to become real. Ali nodded, smiling. "I'm really here, baby." Her father stepped forward slowly, wiping his face. "Mr. Ali, his voice broke. We didn't think you actually would." Ali lifted a hand gently, stopping him. "Don't thank me yet," Ali said. "I'm the one who needed to come." That line hit Sarah's parents harder than anything else. Because what kind of man says that? What kind of hero admits he came because he needed it? Ali turned back to Sarah. "How you feel today, champ?" Sarah tried to smile, but it came out weak. "My arms hurt," she said honestly, "and my mouth gets dry a lot." Ali nodded slowly, taking it in like he could absorb some of her pain if he listened hard enough. "That's all right," he said. "Today we ain't talking about hurt, today we talking about magic." Sarah's eyes widened. "Magic?" Ali reached into his jacket pocket like he was about to pull out a secret weapon. He didn't take out money. He didn't take out a pen. He pulled out a small red handkerchief. Sarah stared at it, confused. Ali held it up like a showman. You ever seen a grown man pull a butterfly out of thin air? Sarah let out a tiny laugh, surprised at her own sound. "No." Ali leaned forward. "Then watch close." He balled the handkerchief up in his fist. He whispered something under his breath like it was a spell. Then he slowly opened his hand. The handkerchief wasn't there anymore. Sarah gasped. Her mouth fell open. Ali's eyebrows lifted like he was proud of himself. "Where'd it go?" he asked. Sarah looked around the bed wildly, as if the handkerchief might be hiding in the blankets. "I don't know." Ali leaned in and pointed gently toward her ear. Hold still, he said. He reached behind her ear, slow, careful, and pulled the handkerchief out like it had been hiding there the whole time. Sarah burst into laughter. Real laughter. Not polite laughter. The kind of laughter that makes your chest feel lighter. Her parents froze for a moment, stunned. Her mother covered her mouth again, but this time the tears were different. Because they hadn't heard that sound in weeks. Ali looked at them and smiled like he was saying, see, she's still here, she's still fighting. Then he turned back to Sarah. You got magic too, Ali said. I do, Sarah asked, breathless. Yes, Ali said firmly. You got the kind of magic that make grown folks cry and smile at the same time. Sarah didn't fully understand what he meant. But she liked the way it sounded. Ali stayed for hours. Not 10 minutes, not a quick photo. Hours. He talked to her like she was a real person, not a sick kid. He told her stories about when he was a boy. How he got his first bike stolen, and got so mad he told a police officer he was going to whoop the thief. How that officer told him, if you're so tough, you should learn how to box. Sarah listened like it was a... So that's why you started fighting? She asked. Ali nodded. That's why. Sarah squinted at him. Did you ever get your bike back? Ali laughed. No, baby. Sarah shook her head, serious. That's not fair. Ali leaned close. That's why I became Muhammad Ali. Sarah giggled again. Then she looked at his hands. They were big, strong. But she noticed something. A small trembling. Very slight, but enough. Mr. Ali, she asked carefully. Ali looked up. Yes, sweetheart. Why your hands shake? Sarah's parents stiffened. They didn't want her asking. They didn't want to see his face change. But Ali didn't get angry. He didn't brush it off. He just looked down at his own hands for a moment like he was meeting the truth again. Sometimes they do that, he said quietly. I've been through a lot, my body tired. Sarah nodded like she understood more than she should at 8 years old. My body tired too, she said. Ali's eyes softened. I know, he whispered. That was the moment. Not the laughter. Not the magic. That moment right there, when a champion and a child looked at each other and admitted they were both tired. And neither of them could fix it. So they did the only thing humans can do when they can't fix something. They stayed close. Near the end of the visit, Ali reached into a small bag he'd brought. He pulled out a worn, shining object. Sarah's eyes widened. What is that? Ali lifted it carefully. My Olympic gold medal, he said. Sarah gasped like he'd placed the moon in her room. You brought that for me. Ali nodded. Only for you. He lowered it into her hands gently. It looked heavy in her small fingers. She stared at it like it was alive. She ran her thumb across the surface. Then she looked up, eyes glossy. You're really the greatest, she whispered. Ali shook his head slowly. No, he said, not me. He tapped her chest lightly with one finger. You? Sarah looked confused. Me? Ali leaned in, voice steady. You fighting something that ain't fair. He paused. And you still smiling. He nodded. That's greatness. Sarah swallowed hard, trying not to cry again. Will I get better? She asked quietly. Her mother turned away, unable to watch. Her father stared at the floor like it might give him an answer. Ali held Sarah's hand, firm but gentle. Sarah, he said, I believe you can. He spoke like he was in the ring, speaking to himself before a fight. I believe you can. Sarah nodded slowly. Then Ali glanced at the clock. Time. Always time. He knew he couldn't stay forever. He stood, but before leaving, he lowered himself onto one knee beside her bed, bringing his face closer to hers like a father telling a secret. Sarah, he said softly, I gotta go soon. Sarah's eyes filled instantly. No, she whispered. Ali squeezed her hand. Listen, he said, I need you to remember something. Sarah nodded, tears falling. Ali's voice lowered even more. You promised me you fight. I am fighting, Sarah whispered. I know, Ali said, and I'm proud of you. Then he hesitated. This was the part that would haunt him. He looked at her carefully. Sarah, if you get better, you come find me someday, okay? Sarah nodded, crying harder. And if you do, Ali's voice cracked. He swallowed, forced himself to finish. If heaven get you before heaven get me. Sarah watched him like she understood exactly what he meant. Ali leaned closer. You save me a spot, he whispered. You hear me? Sarah's lips trembled. I will, she said. And when I get there, Ali said, tears forming again, we gonna float like butterflies. Sarah smiled through tears. I'll save you the best spot, she whispered. Ali kissed her forehead. Soft. Careful. Then he stood quickly and turned toward the door. Because if he stayed one more second, he might fall apart again. And in the hallway, the moment the door closed behind him, Muhammad Ali broke down. Not like a champion, not like a celebrity, like a man realizing some fights can't be won with fists. A nurse stepped forward to help him. Sarah's father tried to say something, but Ali couldn't hear words. He could only hear her question echoing in his mind. Will you remember me in heaven? And he didn't know yet that this goodbye wouldn't be the end. It would be the beginning of a promise that followed him for decades. 2 weeks after Sarah died, Muhammad Ali finally heard the news. Not from the show, not from the hospital, not from any headline. From her parents, a trembling phone call that felt like someone quietly shutting a door forever. Ali held the receiver in his hand and didn't speak for a long time. On the other end, Sarah's mother tried to explain through tears. She held on as long as she could, she said. She kept talking about you. She kept saying she wasn't scared because she had a promise. Ali's throat moved like he was trying to swallow something that wouldn't go down. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely there. Where's she buried? Sarah's father gave him the name of the place. Oak Hill Cemetery, Newton, Massachusetts. Ali repeated it back slowly, like he was carving the words into his memory. Oak Hill, Newton. Then he said something that frightened Sarah's parents, because it sounded like a man stepping into loneliness on purpose. I'm sorry, Ali whispered. I'm sorry I could. He stopped, because what comes after couldn't. Couldn't save her. Couldn't fight it for her. Couldn't trade places. No sentence could hold that truth. So instead, Ali ended the call quietly. And when the line went dead, he stayed sitting for a long time, staring at nothing. Because her question didn't end with her. That question had moved in. And now it lived inside him. At first, the world didn't notice anything. Ali still appeared at events. He still smiled for photos. He still waved at crowds. He still wore the title people gave him, hero, icon, legend, like a coat that looked heavy but familiar. But there was another Ali now. A quieter one. A private one. A man who remembered an 8-year-old voice asking a question no adult wanted to answer. A man who couldn't stop thinking about what he promised on live television. I will never forget you. It's easy to say something like that in a moment. It's harder to live it. And here's what most people don't understand. Ali didn't forget. Not even for a day. Because once you make a promise to someone at the edge of life, that promise becomes a mirror. It shows you who you really are. And Ali couldn't live with the idea of breaking it. So he did something almost no one would believe. He began visiting Sarah's grave. Not once, not twice, but again and again, over the years, quietly. He never announced it. Never told the press. Never told fans. He didn't bring cameras, didn't bring speeches, didn't bring attention. He brought silence. And he brought himself. Whenever Ali was anywhere near Boston, he'd find a way. Early mornings, late evenings. times when the world was busy elsewhere. He'd wear a baseball cap, sunglasses, plain clothes, trying to shrink his fame down into something invisible. Because this wasn't for the public. This was between him and Sarah. And the cemetery became the one place where Ali didn't have to be the greatest. He could be what he really was. A man keeping a promise. Years passed. His body changed. The tremor got worse. His movements slowed. His voice grew softer, like it was fading into the background of his own life. People began whispering about Parkinson's. The world watched him become more fragile, and many felt sorry for him. But they still didn't know the real thing that haunted him. Not the illness. Not the fame. Not even the past fights. It was a small grave in Newton, Massachusetts. And a promise that kept pulling him back. There was a groundskeeper at Oak Hill Cemetery named Robert. To him, the cemetery wasn't spooky. It was routine. It was grass and stones and seasons. It was the quiet place where people left flowers and grief and went back to their lives. Robert had seen every kind of mourner. The dramatic ones, the silent ones, the ones who stayed 5 minutes and ran away, and the ones who sat for hours because leaving felt like betrayal. So when Robert noticed a man visiting a little girl's grave over and over, he didn't think much at first. Except something about it was different. This man didn't come with a crowd. He came alone. He didn't talk to anyone. He didn't look around. He walked straight to one grave, sat down, and stayed. Sometimes for hours. Sometimes so still, he looked like part of the stone. And he would speak softly, like he was having a real conversation. Robert couldn't hear the words, but he could see the emotion. He could see the way the man's shoulders would slump like he was carrying something heavy. He could see the way he'd place flowers carefully, not rushed. Not like a visitor checking a box. Like someone arranging a gift. And once, on a day when the wind was gentle, Robert saw something that stayed in his mind. The man opened a small jar. Inside was a butterfly. A real one. Carefully held. The man lifted the lid, waited, and let it go. The butterfly rose, fluttering up and away. And the man whispered something toward the grave. Robert didn't know why, but the sight made his throat tighten. Because it looked like love. Not loud love. Not performative love. Private love. The kind the world rarely sees. For years, Robert didn't know who the man was. But he saw small gifts left behind. A butterfly pin. A tiny boxing glove. A photo with writing on the back. And the same phrase kept appearing again and again. Float like a butterfly. Robert assumed it was a family joke. A nickname. A sweet memory. He didn't connect it yet. Because why would he? The idea that the most famous fighter in the world was secretly sitting at a child's grave was too strange to imagine. Until one day in 1997, the man arrived again. Robert noticed immediately. He was slower now. More stiff. Like walking was hard. His sunglasses slipped as he bent down. And for a moment, his face was fully visible. Robert froze. Because he recognized him instantly. It was Muhammad Ali. Right there. Not on a poster. Not on television. Not in some grand arena. Sitting by a little girl's grave like a father who never recovered. Robert didn't walk over. Didn't speak. Didn't interrupt. He watched from a distance, because something told him this wasn't his moment to touch. Ali sat there a long time. Then he took out something wrapped carefully. A letter. His hands shook as he placed it down. He adjusted a stone on top like he was protecting it from the wind. Then he sat back, eyes closed for a moment, lips moving like a prayer. And when he finally stood, he rested a hand on the headstone, just briefly, like a goodbye. Then he walked away slowly. Not looking back. Robert kept the secret. Not for days. Not for weeks. For years. Because he understood something important. Some grief isn't meant to be consumed. Some love isn't meant to be turned into content. And some promises deserve privacy. So he kept quiet. Until 2016. Until Muhammad Ali died. And suddenly the world was speaking about Ali again. His greatness, his legacy, his courage. And Robert realized. People knew Ali the champion. But they didn't know Ali the promise keeper. They didn't know about the quiet visits. They didn't know about the butterflies. They didn't know that behind the legend was a man still answering an 8-year-old girl's question every time he sat at her grave. So after Ali passed, Robert finally told the story. And America heard something it wasn't ready for. That the strongest thing Ali ever did wasn't in a ring. It was showing up. Again and again. When no one was watching. Because here's the truth that lands hardest. In life, betrayal doesn't always come from people. Sometimes betrayal is time. Sometimes betrayal is sickness. Sometimes betrayal is the cruel unfairness of the world taking an innocent child. And Ali couldn't get revenge on that. He couldn't expose it. He couldn't defeat it. So he did the only kind of revenge a good man can do against a cruel world. He refused to let her be forgotten. He turned pain into loyalty. He turned grief into a promise kept. And that's why the Groundskeeper's story shook people more than any highlight reel ever could. Because it proved something simple. Heroes aren't the ones who never cry. Heroes are the ones who cry and still show up. Still remember. Still keep their word. And if there's a lesson in all of this, it's not about fame. It's not about being Muhammad Ali. It's about how we treat the small promises we make when someone is scared. Because those promises are not small to them. To someone like Sarah, a promise is a lifeline. And Ali held on to that lifeline for decades. Quietly, faithfully, until the very end. So if you ever wonder what greatness really looks like, it looks like a man sitting in a cemetery at dawn, speaking softly to a name on a stone, and releasing a butterfly into the sky.